Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Black Men with Purpose podcast. For those of you joining us for the first time, it's a pleasure to have you with us. This is a safe space where we share our thoughts on a multitude of topics in hopes of helping Black males, young and not so young, overcome obstacles and challenges that can be hindrances to happiness, productivity, and success. We believe that through our experiences, successes, and failures, we can have some conversations that might help other Black males in their respective journeys through this thing we call life. On today's episode, our topic is Black men using art, creativity, and culture to express their purpose. And we're going to have Brother Ray kick us off.
I appreciate you, Doc. Well, I happen to be watching. I thought about this young man that I want to talk about. I call him young, but the dude is 48 years old. But I thought about him, and then I got a little bit of confirmation as I was watching the news, and they ran a story on him on on last Wednesday, and it struck me that I said, okay, this is the person I definitely need to talk about. And the individual I'm going to talk about is Warrick Dunn. For those of you who don't know anything about Warrick Dunn, he's a retired professional football player who was a running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. And then he went back to the Buccaneers to wrap up his career. And he was in the league for 12 years. And after he retired, he actually was able to get a minority stake in the Atlanta Falcons ownership group that's owned by the owner, Arthur Blank. A little bit about him. He played football in Baton Rouge, Louisiana when he was growing up. And he was All-American quarterback, running back, and cornerback. And during his sophomore year, he helped lead his high school team to a state championship for the first time in his history. And he was named an All-American honorable mention selection by USA Today as a senior. He then went on to Florida State University, where he played football before he got drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. Before he went to college, though, 2 days before his 18th birthday, his mom was gunned down. She was a police officer in Baton Rouge, and she was murdered while working on an off-duty security gig. And he immediately became the head of the house. And he ended up taking care of all of his brothers and sisters, raised all of his siblings. And a good man, further on down the road, he actually ended up meeting with one of his mother's killers, and he expressed and offered his forgiveness to that man, something I don't know I could even do. But like I said, that's a good man right there. He's one of very few athletes at Florida State that had his number retired, even though players still can wear it. But his is just displayed in the Moore Athletic Center at FSU. And some of the players whose numbers were retired at Florida State were wide receiver Fred Blitnikoff, linebacker Ron Simmons, quarterback Charlie Ward, cornerback Deion Sanders, a quarterback named Chris Winkie, and a lot of people have heard of this individual, Burt Reynolds. Once he left college, again, like I said, he played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He has several records for Tampa Bay, receptions in the game, for 12 in 2001 against Chicago. Playoffs for 26 receptions, and a playoff game he had 8 in 2002 against Philadelphia. He had several 1,000-yard rushing seasons in his career, and then he left Atlanta. He left Tampa Bay and went to Atlanta. And after he retired, he did. Let me back up before he retired. One of the things that he did is he established the Homes for the Holidays program in 1997, and started the Work Done Charities in 2002 as a way to grow programs and services. The Homes for the Holidays program rewards single parent families for reaching first time home ownership. Those recipient families are chosen through partnership with Habitat for Humanity affiliates and the Work Done Charities with complete home furnishings and down payment assistance. As of July 2012, the Home for the Holidays had assisted over 150 single parents and over 300 dependents in Atlanta, Baton Rouge, Tampa, and Tallahassee, Florida. And by providing families with positive home environment, the Work Done Charities believes that children can thrive educationally, socially, and economically. In 2006, one of the families that were able to get one of the homes that his charity offered up was Deshaun Watson, who is now the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. And then he went on after that point, when he was a young man, to play quarterback for Clemson University, and actually won the national championship in college football in 2017. Dunn's achievements have been recognized over the years. He received a Giant Steps Award in civic leadership from former President Bill Clinton for his program. In 2005, he was presented with the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, which is the award, or the only award in the NFL that recognizes a player for his community service as well as for his excellence on the field. In the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, he challenged all NFL players except for those who played for the New Orleans Saints to donate at least $5,000 to the effort. And that effort received over $5 million in contributions. In 2007, he, along with Andre Agassi, Muhammad Ali, Lance Armstrong, Jeff Gordon, Mia Hamm, Tony Hawk, Andrea Yeager, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Mario Lemieux, Alonzo Mourning, and Cal Ripken Jr. founded Athletes for Hope, which is a charitable organization that helps professional athletes, sports industry professionals, and fans get involved in charitable causes. For his exceptional involvement on and off the field, he was awarded with the Bart Starr Award in 2009 and the Jefferson Award for Outstanding Athlete in Service and Philanthropy in 2011. And to date, this is what the story was about last week. The charity, the Work Done charity, has given away 219 homes, with the number 219 being given away to a single father last Wednesday, October 17th, here in Tampa Bay. So that's who I wanted to talk about. Excellent role model, former football player that's doing more now that he has retired with his talents and trying to take care of his community. So the name Work Done.
Well, I guess I'll jump in since nobody else is piping up. First guy I want to talk about is this brother named Kevin A. Williams, or as his art moniker is, or as he's known by his art moniker, is WAK, W-A-K, um, which is just his initials backwards. This dude, Felicia, my wife, is the one who stumbled upon his artwork um, in viewing something. I can't remember what it was on Instagram, and she sent me um, his profile, and I was looking at his art. Like immediately, I was enamored, and like he's my favorite artist. Him and this other brother named C. Bobby. But he he is originally from Chicago, even though he now resides in Atlanta, and that's where his, he does his artwork and all of that. There's a studio that sells his art pieces out of there as well. But he he started off somewhere around. Well, he started drawing when he was like 15 years old or something like that, and he just had a knack for it. It's a God given talent, quite frankly. But he was doing stuff on Chicago's East Side or South Side. I'm sorry. Um, and by the time he was 19, he kind of became an illustrator for soft sheen hair products. For those of you all old enough to remember all of that, those commercials that used to air back in the day. But he was doing illustrations for them. And then he went on to become pretty much Bernie Mac's personal artist for like 15 years. He was doing other stuff in the process as well, but he was Bernie Mac's personal artist. He did a painting or a piece for Oprah Winfrey's 50th birthday, which to this day she still regards as like probably her most amazing gift ever. Um, and it actually hangs in a lobby of that Leadership Academy for Girls school that she has in South Africa. He's been commissioned by the PGA, Professional Golf Association, for those who don't know what that is, to memorialize some of the black inductees into the PGA Hall of Fame, like Bill Spiller and Ted Rhodes and so forth and so on. He's done stuff for the AKAs. I mean, the list just goes on. All of the pieces that he's done and the people that he's done it for. His artwork has been featured on Law and Order, on Soul Food, a bunch of other television shows. He does commission pieces as well. This guy is, when I tell you, for me, he's phenomenal. I absolutely love his artwork. Felicia and I had the opportunity to go to one of his art shows last year in Atlanta. In fact, it was about this time last year. I think it was like the first week in November of last year. And heard he was having an art show. And we were like, yeah, we got to go. So we drove over to Atlanta and stayed for the weekend, did his art show, met him, and we actually bought one of his pieces. We've since bought another piece as well. But this guy, I mean, he does stuff for his whole purpose is to illustrate the African American experience. That's really what his artwork is about. It's very figurative. His pieces, and he's an amazing person. His art is just incredible. He does stuff for Black Lives Matter. And yeah, if you have an opportunity, please you can go to his website. You can go to his Instagram page, which is Art by Whack. Art, it's all one word, Art by WAK. And see his pieces. I will tell you his pieces are not cheap, but they are worth it for sure. He's an incredible person, an incredible artist. So yeah, Kevin Wack Williams.
Speaking of Kevin's, I'm gonna go with a Kevin we all know. I'm going for some low hanging fruit. Yeah, that joke is even better than I thought. Speaking of Kevin's, and before we started recording, we sure was talking about a Kevin. No, I want to shine a spotlight on Kevin Hart. I think a lot of times, like I don't even want to just assume that we don't give him his flowers or recognize how talented he is, but I do think sometimes people take him for granted because he can be quite ubiquitous. We see him everywhere. And, like when I first noticed him, I started realizing how ambitious he was because I am not a stand-up comedian, but I do know how difficult it is to put in sets of various terms, 5, 15, 30 minutes, an hour. And I saw how ambitious it was that like at least once every 18 months to 24 months, he was endeavoring to put on an hour of brand new comedy on a big stage and a special. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I kind of got in his story. I felt like, especially after watching Laugh at My Pain, I thought it was really inspirational. And come to find out that his first comedy special, which is one of my favorites, Grown Little Man, was completely self-financed. So much to the point that he rented out the stadium or the theater that he was in and hired the production company, and everyone that was there basically got in for free so he could fill the audience. And he used his own money to the point he makes a joke, but he says it's a true story. They didn't have enough money for him and his wife and his kids to get their hotel room, but he believed in the dream. So he had to write a hot check so that they could, they could have a hotel room for the few nights that they were there. But so he ended up recording that on his own. He was able to sell it to Comedy Central, and it didn't blow up or anything, but it got him his foot in the game, and then he started doing his other ones, and he actually self-financed one of his biggest, which was Laugh at My Pain. But the reason why I chose Kevin Hart is because he has distinguished himself as a top comedian, an actor, in entertainment. He's definitely got to the top of the mountain as far as that's gone. But he's invested himself in the entrepreneurial side. In 2022, he was voted by a few magazines. This isn't like the definitive, but one of the fastest rising celebrity entrepreneurs. And he is definitely rooted in so many different ventures. So to start off with, he's got into fitness. So he's got a deal brand with Hard Row. They do rowing machines, so he's the creative director for them. He's also the director for Fabletics, which is a male activewear line. He's got a production company called Heartbeat Productions. He's got a venture capital company called Heart Venture. And he's opening up a healthy vegan restaurant chain called Heart House Foods. So like he's got a tequila brand. I'm not a tequila drinker, so I'm not really into that, but he's got a tequila brand. And when you watch him talk about how he's doing all of these things, he says he thinks about how difficult it was and the grind of being a comedian and of being found. He thinks about those communities. So like with Heart House, he talks about how these issues affect the Black community, and he wanted to make a healthy option that was easily available. And that's what made him desire to start Heart House. And then Heartbeat, he wanted to make sure that these young Black comedians, there's already enough difficulties for them coming up as comedians, but he understands the additional issues that comedians of color, women face, and he wants to be able to establish those voices and allow them to come up behind him. And not only him and his family and his legacy, but he wants to make sure that he can be a part of turning some of those tables so that the generations coming behind him. So I think I'm really inspired by the fact that not only did he go and do his thing and, enjoy the fruits of his labor, but he's building an empire with an emphasis on giving back and establishing others and allowing them, removing some of those barriers that they might face coming up in whatever areas they're coming up in. So.
I think you're on mute, B. Thought I saw you trying. Okay.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Hey, this has been a great project for us. Me and Kevin texting back and forth. I thought about had a couple of people in mind, but I thought about people like unsung heroes, like people that are just up and coming, either in art or up and coming in literature. I mean, we have people that we know. So I had came across a couple of people, man. I thought about people that I know personally. So I thought about this guy named Daniel Austin. I thought about Mr. Professor Harrison. I talked about, now there's an artist I know, his name is Ernest Varner, but we can get to him a little bit later. But I thought about just local people, not local people, but people that I know that maybe don't have the recognition. So the first person I want to talk about is a guy named Daniel Austin. So Daniel Austin is a recording artist. He's a music writer. He's mostly in the gospel arena. Back in 2006, I think he was the music director at Howard University. But the thing that I like about him, he was the director of music for Howard, graduated from Howard with his music degree. And then he went on, he recorded with people, like Kurt Carr, with the Clark sisters, Hezekiah Walker. But then one thing that happened to Daniel, and this is another thing we talk about, but he developed diabetes, and he'll tell you in his story that he did not take care of himself like he should have. And so his health started to decline with some of the challenges that he faced. But one of the things it did not do was stop his passion. And I think, what we talk about on our show is that we don't allow people or allow situations or circumstances to stop your passion. So his name is Daniel Austin, from the DC area, Howard graduate, gospel artist. You can find his music on Amazon. You can find his music on Apple Tunes. You can find him on YouTube. But the thing, like I said, the thing about him that I like the most is about his passion for his music. Even with some of the health challenges that he faced right now, like he's lost his eyesight, but he still is teaching music. So he's still, even though he can't move around like he used to. I mean, when you talk to him, you hear a story about how he used to drive BMWs and he had these lucrative contracts, and went to the point where he kind of lost it all, in the sense that his health had declined so bad that he was living in a nursing home for a couple of years. And all the people that he used to write for and so forth, everybody just kind of, forgot about him. But he didn't, even with that, even losing his eyesight, even with people, turning backs on him, he still has his passion for music. So now today he still lives in the DC area. He can't drive, of course, but he lost his eyesight and everything. But he's very passionate about what he does. And I just love that when I interact with him, he doesn't have a sad story. That hey, Byron, it could be the other way, and I'm sure some days he does get frustrated, but like I said, he's not as well known as some other people that we talked about. But when you talk about how some of these other people got their start, guess what? Somebody found them in another venue, talked about them to the right people, and guess what? Now they're famous. So I took today's assignment as, hey, I want to talk about maybe people who are not as well known, but people that you know personally that have done well in their role and what they've done and what their purpose is. So I got a couple other people. Like I said, there's Daniel Austin, Professor George Harrison, Charles Moore out of Michigan, even little Victor Trent. So yeah, so we got a couple of people we can discuss. And the thing about this project, and again, it's like, when we think about some of the challenges that we face as African Americans, it's still some people out here that's pushing through what they have to deal with. And so, I mean, all of us on this call is a product of that. Even John Singletary Senior, the author, is somebody we can also celebrate well, So when you look at his book, and yeah, so we got a lot to celebrate for. So I'll just start. I just wanted to put that out there for Daniel Austin. Like I said, his music is still out there on Amazon. It's still out there on Apple Music and various places, and he's still impacting people. He's still training voices, and so that's why I wanted to share as my first person.
Cool.
Over to you, Rod.
Wow, thanks. Yeah, so I went back and forth on this as well. I know when it first came up, I think I was talking to Kev and John and threw out a name that I had followed when I was younger, growing up. I lived in Houston actually, and so I'm just going to go back for a minute because I'm always fascinated by what some of our former generations of folks were able to do under less than ideal conditions. And so real quick, just about Alvin Ailey Jr. Born in 1931 in a Jim Crow Texas, uh, and he's actually from not too far from here, but basically a little a little north of Austin and south of Temple, in a small community called Rogers, Texas. And I mean, even today, it's way off the beaten path. So just imagine in 1931, in the 30s, uh, early 40s, but and I think unfortunately, like a lot of folks from our communities, uh, didn't have his dad, so raised by a single mother. Uh, as a young man, he had to witness uh, four white men rape his mother, gang rape his mother. And that's tough for any person, any young man to have to deal with. And I think, when things like that occur, it can, it can drive you, deeper into the darkness of your own world, wherever you can find some semblance of peace and security. But anyway, from that, his mom, working in the cotton fields, moved around from place to place looking for work. And, so it's almost created like a nomadic lifestyle for him. But just like a lot of people from our community, found peace in church, uh, and then found his passion and love for dance, sneaking out to the juke joints, watching older people dance and express themselves through dance. Uh, and so, he went on to, of course, establish the Alvin Ailey American Dance Center, and with it, just provided a lot of opportunities to other inspiring artists through dance. Of course, caught on in New York early on, and just kind of exploded from there. You know, uh, Rubbed elbows with some of the greats from back in his time. Pearl Bailey, Billie Holiday, Lena Horne, Count Basie. Uh, all the while, having to live his truth uh, in private and in darkness. Learning later on that he had to deal with homophobia uh, due to his sexuality, uh, or should I say homosexuality, but he still found a way to push through and do a lot of good for a lot of people and paved the way for folks that wanted to express themselves through dance. Uh, and I knew some people personally in Houston that were products of the Alvin Ailey Dance Center, and I could see the difference it made in their lives. So just wanted to just recognize him, for being someone that had to really carve out a path where there was none, and was able to push through uh, while overcoming tremendous obstacles where no one would have ever, you know, thought ill of him for stopping or quitting, you know. But it's something about when you find your purpose in life, and I hope that would be a message for anyone, no matter your circumstances, recognizing that everyone has a purpose for being here. And when you find yours, it can propel you to levels of greatness that you never even fathom possible. So Alvin Ailey is just who I wanted to recognize. Of course, he died at 58 uh, due to AIDS, and he had the doctor to identify the cause of death for him as a blood disorder so that his mother would not be hurt or embarrassed uh, by his lifestyle choices and the decisions that he made personally. So Alvin Ailey, and when you think of ballet and dancing, I know when I was growing up in Houston, he was all the rave, and I didn't know much about him then. Uh, but again, did see people that were benefactors uh, of the path that he had have carved out. So I will pass it back to you, brothers.
All right, I'll jump back in here. Since we were talking, one of the things you said, art, music, and literature. Um, I did find someone that I wanted to talk about who uses art as a tool for social change, addressing social issues through art, and provoking dialogues on social injustice through the mixed media. And the individual's name is Hank Willis Thomas. Um, he is a prolific, multidisciplinary artist who works span photography, sculpture, and multimedia installations. His art tackles themes of race, consumer culture, and social injustice using imagery and symbolism to provoke introspection and dialogue. One of his most renowned series is called Unbranded Reflections in Black by Corporate America, and it addresses the representation of Black bodies in media and advertising. Through recontextualizing vintage advertisements and removing text and branding, he exposes the deeply ingrained stereotypes that persist in the portrayal of Black individuals. His art encourages viewers to question the role of media and corporations in shaping our perceptions of race and identity. And by juxtaposing powerful imagery with subtle nuances, um, he challenges us to confront the complexities of racism and systemic inequalities, or I'm sorry, inequities. And one of the art pieces that he did, there are statues of just from the neck and arms up of individuals with their hands up as in the hands up, don't shoot. And I thought that was really provoking because we have experienced this or have seen it for years and years and years. And so when I saw that piece, I'm like, you know what? I really want to talk about this individual. Um, but to continue on through his art, he exemplifies the profound impact that artists can have in driving social change and inspiring transformation. His works shine a spotlight on the Black experience. It challenges societal norms and advocates for representation, justice, and equity. His dedication to art for social change reminds us of the potent ability of creativity to ignite conversations, evoke emotions, and unite communities. Uh, in the face of adversity, he has embraced his role as a catalyst for progress, using that artistry to create more than just inclusive and empathetic world. His contributions resonate deeply within the Black community and beyond. Um, I was able to find some information about Hank Willis Thomas on the website dopeblack.org. So if you want to take a look for yourself, It talks about him, and it talks about a young lady by the name of Ayanna B. Jackson. But Hank Willis Thomas is who I want to bring to the spotlight on this as my next person. So I yield the floor.
All right, I want to talk about this brother named Gerald Sunbright. He is a chef. Um, he's from St. Louis. He was first, I guess, where he first was noticed was on, for anyone who is into um, chef shows, competitions, and things like that, which I very much am. But he really became known from a show called Top Chef on Bravo Channel. For anyone who might be familiar with it, the season he was on, there were 16 contestants, and he actually was the first one cut. First week, he was the one who was out, but obviously he didn't let that stop him. He went on to continue doing what he was doing in the restaurant industry and kind of became even more well known after that. But one of his biggest accomplishments is, and it just happened last year in 2022, he became, or actually it was a couple years ago, I take that back, but he became the first black man to win a Michelin star. And for anyone who is familiar with, or isn't familiar, I guess, with a Michelin star, I'll briefly touch on that. Um, the Michelin star is probably recognized as the, it is the standard in the restaurant industry. And that's not just in the United States, that's in the world. If you get this, I'm not going to get all into what a Michelin star, the entire system, but um, essentially it's a 3-star system. You can win 1, 2, or 3 stars, but just to win a Michelin star, period, is like, man, it takes you and your career and your restaurant, if you have one, to a whole other level. It's huge to get a Michelin star, and even though the Michelin star system has been around since like 1926, it just came to the United States in 2005. So it's only what 18 years old here. But he was the first black man, and I think only the second black person ever to get a Michelin star. There have been a total of 6, which still obviously isn't a lot of black people who have won, but he was again the first black male to get a Michelin star for a restaurant that he started with a friend of his and a business partner who also competed on Top Chef on Bravo. But they opened up a restaurant called Knife and Spoon in Orlando, and that's where he won his Michelin star. The restaurant is still there, even though he has since moved on. He wanted to take on a greater challenge, so he ended up going to this restaurant and taking over their whole conglomerate. It's called the Club at the Dunes, I believe. It's also in Florida, but it's in Naples, Florida. But this guy is just he's doing his thing. I mean, not a lot of he even has stated that he didn't see black people doing what he was doing when he was growing up, right? He just had a love for cooking, and knew it was something he wanted to do, but he wasn't sure how he would be able to kind of make his bones, so to speak, because again, to do what he wanted to do at the level he wanted to do it at, there just weren't any black people really doing it when he's in his 40s. I think he's in his early 40s, but you didn't see that a lot back then. And so he just worked his way up, busting tables and doing dishes and all the different things, and slowly but surely, started to be able to cook in some restaurants and things like that until he got to where he is today. So I think that for me, being even though my body doesn't allow me to be the foodie that I used to be, that's still a big thing. I still very much love cooking shows and competitions, and I love great food, and I love finding and going to great restaurants. And it does my heart good when I can come across, someone who's black who is doing it to the level that he's doing it at. He's not extremely famous. I mean, typically, if you are in the chef world, you know his name. But outside of that, you don't even have to be in that arena to know the names like, Bobby Flay, those sorts of names, and so you may not recognize his name, which is why I wanted to kind of put a spotlight on him, Gerald Sombright. And he too has his own website. He's on Instagram. So if you want to check him out, and if you're ever in Florida and you get a chance to check out his original restaurant, which again is still there, as a Michelin star, Knife and Spoon, or the restaurant that he's running now. Again, the Club at the Dunes in Naples, Florida. So again, Gerald Sombright is his name.
That's what I'm talking about. Gerald Sombright. Yeah, I'm a fan of his. Like, I just found out about the Michelin star about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And that's a big deal. Like,
Yes,
just
sir.
because I think the majority of us, when you talk about that as a as an accomplishment, there's not many of us that have actually eaten at a restaurant that has earned a Michelin
Absolutely.
star, let alone
Absolutely.
being aware of somebody with a Michelin star. So I love that.
Yeah.
I love this conversation, and just to kind of talk about how we would love for this to land for anybody that's paying attention, that's watching, or maybe listening to the audio podcast. It's just talking about Black men that have used their creativity, to use their gifts to live out their purpose. We know, especially us, all 5 of us came from a corporate military government setting. And so often our creativity, especially coming up, I'm holding down the youngest, and I'm, early to mid 70s. So, coming up when we did, it was like, you better get you a good job and pay these bills and, live
Right.
this life. And it's just amazing to see, we want to encourage young folks, specifically and especially young Black men, to choose and chase your purpose, whether it be your artistic, we've talked about athletes, chefs, writers, painters, artists, dancers. And so the passion that is within you, you can find your purpose. I'm gonna take some more low hanging fruit. I let my brothers get to the deep ones. I'm gonna go with the ones that we all familiar with. I'm gonna go with a young man by the name of Steve Land Hardaway Jenkins, aka Morris, that most of us know as Stevie Wonder. And we know what Stevie Wonder has done on the mic. His first big hit, Fingertips, way back, but he's also very active in civil rights. Like, on his professional side, obviously, he's one of the most decorated musicians of all time, sold over 100 million records, over 25 individual Grammys, won the awards, has the standing. But as a civil rights activist, he was active as a teen during the initial civil rights era, and he was instrumental and pivotal in the Martin Luther King holiday coming to fruition. And we all sing the happy birthday song that we sing, which was basically a dedication to getting that holiday. But he was also very active in the struggle in South Africa, apartheid, and a vocal proponent and activist in that. In 2009, he was what was that? He was named the United Nations Messenger of Peace, and then in 2014, he was a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And so, someone who could have easily just used all of his winnings and trappings to live his own incredible life, but he has been very dedicated to activism and making life better for people of color, specifically Black people all over the world, for many, many years and many, many decades. So, Stevie Wonder, y'all. Stevie Wonder.
Yes, sir.
Wow, yeah, Stevie Wonder. He's hey, you think about it, he's wrote the theme songs for many of our lives, for sure.
Yeah, man.
The next person I want to talk about is I don't know, is a author, he's an educator, His name is George Harrison. We call him
Man,
Professor.
is Byron frozen on anybody else's screen or just mine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're frozen. I mean, we can hear you just fine,
Yeah,
but
we can hear you just
hear me?
fine.
yeah, you're just frozen though on the screen, but we can hear you.
Okay.
Anyone who's listening to the podcast is they have no idea, but we can hear you.
All right.
So,
I can I keep going, I guess. If y'all want me, I can try to refresh the screen. I don't know. Let me see if that works. But yeah, so Professor George Harrison, I met him as an educator, but he grew up in the South, in the deep South in Virginia in the 40s. And so he came up in the 40s and 50s. He was born on a tobacco farm. So coming up in the 40s, he was a product of those Jim Crow laws and so forth. But he could not wait to get out of the South, like most of our people before us that grew up in the South. So he ended up going to Howard University, graduated from Howard University, and joined ROTC and became an engineer, and was actually in the Air Force for about 8 years. Got his commission, joined the Air Force, got out, finished his master's at Creighton University. One of the things he did, though, is he inspired so many other Black people to push forward in their education journey. So he's actually the author, and he has written a book called Black Excellence: Identifying Your Superpower and Becoming a Top Achiever. So in that book, it's a couple of things one thing in chapter 3, he actually talks about, the well-known people, the Stevie Wonders, the Muhammad Ali's, the Malcolm X's, the people who we see in main media as the people that we go to as our people of color, who we look toward for, as achieving goals in their life. But what Professor Harrison has done in his book draws on the experiences that he's had and the strategies that he's used to become successful in his own right. I won't say crazy thing, but the thing what pushed him, that he wrote this book at 80 years old. That's when he wrote his first book at 80. Wow. So in spite of everything he had already accomplished, he's a six Lean Lima. He's got his master's degree. He was an educator for a number of universities. He currently lives in Georgia right now, but his biggest passion is his family. How he's pushed his sons and daughters. He's got one son that's an engineer and also a sports agent. He's got another son that's an attorney. He's got a daughter that's an attorney. And so he and his wife, still first wife, only wife, been together over 50 years, and they still push excellence. And in his book, when you read in his book is about inspiring not only for you to be a top achiever, but then how can you give back to the generations that are coming after you? And he talks in his book about how so important that is for, as Black men, as Black women, as leaders, regardless to where we are in our community. If you're a leader. And so it's important for us to give back to those folks that are not even necessarily struggling, but hey, trying to find their path, trying to find what works for them. And so he encourages us to, don't settle because you have one or two obstacles. Because as Black people, guess what? We have obstacles our whole life. We might not have had as many as our forefathers had, but he was like, don't let the obstacles keep you from achieving the goals that you have. You have purpose, in a matter of just finding what your purpose is, sticking with it, and don't giving up. So that's one thing. That's one person I wanted to highlight. Again, somebody maybe not as famous as some of the other people, but somebody that that you can know, that you've seen their life. I've probably known him for about 15, 16 years, and I've seen him inspire other people to, again, finish their education, to be better fathers. You just have one conversation with him and you're like, okay, you know what? I know what my purpose is. Let me lay down my strategies to be successful, and then just let me walk in it. So again, that's Professor George Harrison. You find him on social media. You can find him on LinkedIn. You can Google him and you'll find out. And you again on Amazon, his book is called Black Excellence. So it's a great book. I encourage anybody to take a moment to read that book. So that's my next person. Over to you, Rod.
Yeah, I will be fairly quick. I'm sure you probably be no more about this young man's journey than even I do. And I read his book uh, last year, I think it was, and was just kind of awe-inspired. Not necessarily that his journey was a whole lot different than a lot of young men from our community. But what resonated with me was just the stick-to-itiveness and the passion that he had for what he really believed his purpose was. And so his name is Lecrae Devon Moore. Uh, Most people know him as just Lecrae, the uh, the gospel rapper. I'm sure they refer to him as a lot of other things, but he's born in Houston and raised by a single mother who shortly thereafter moved to Denver. And just kind of from early on, his personality loomed large, and he went from being kind of a quiet and shy person to a pretty outward person. I mean, if and just reading his history, anyone that goes from being a confirmed introvert to an extrovert, it seemed like that's the path that his life took on. You know, and then from Denver they moved to San Diego, uh, and I mean, I love San Diego. If anyone's ever been there, it's no different than a lot of cities where uh, people of certain races and ethnicities are kind of subjected or subjugated to a certain side of town. In San Diego, I believe it's the South Side, but there he really just kind of found his stride. Uh, uh, Fell in love with music and just pursued that. I mean, he was passionate about it. But as we know, sometimes, growing up in certain communities, in order to, survive and navigate those streets, you know, I think a lot of sometimes people choose to take on some of that persona. Uh, Plus, I think it said he had a uncle who was a gang member, former gang member, and so of course now he moved around like like he was one, you know, but ultimately found his way to Texas, attended University of North Texas, uh, and of course I've dropped a kid off at University of North Texas, so I'm very familiar with the campus. He embraced the environment there. Uh, and of course, got on this hustle, attended some talent shows, traveled down to Atlanta to participate in some, did very well, of course, and just made up his mind that music was his thing. But in the meantime and in between time, he after getting arrested one day, he replaced drugs as his choice with uh, with alcohol and partying. So uh, sometimes we have to find a way to get out of our own way, But the thing that that really jumped out to me regarding his story was that no matter what happened to him, that most people would construe as being negative, he always found a way to push through, staying focused on his goals, and I found that refreshing. I know myself, being that age, it could, I guess, whatever doesn't make you stronger will break you, but not everyone has the ability to push through with the level of commitment that he showed. Uh, Ultimately paying off, being uh, recognized and nominated uh, for Dove Award 4 consecutive years, finally winning on the fourth year for Artist of the Year, and showed that you know there was a space and a place for a gospel rapper, and so I appreciated his story, and started his own. Of course, he has his own label now, independent label that he started himself, and is still in the music game. But uh, but that was my guy, Lecrae Divine Moore, who is still around doing great things. All right.
All right. So I do have another. Ray, did you have someone else, or were you want to?
I can yield the floor, bro. Go right ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll try to be quick. This brother Terrence Lester, or rather Dr. Terrence Lester, since he does have a PhD, he's a pastor. He's a scholar. He's an activist. He founded a nonprofit organization called Love Beyond Walls. His story, again, briefly, is that at 16 years old, he had dropped out of school. He was a member of a gang, kind of lived on the streets, attempted suicide. By the time he was 20, he had been arrested. And it was while he was in jail that he kind of got his life turned around. And when he came out of jail, he really kind of started down this path that's led to where he is now. Um, his his organization is all about driving awareness um, to homelessness, to poverty, to economic inequality. He has been featured on a number of news shows, CNN, Good Morning America. He's not some famous, world-known person or anything like that, or even extremely known here in the U.S. And in fact, I even just discovered him recently, again, thanks to Felicia. Um, but in looking up his story and first looking at his Instagram page and then going to his website and just seeing the work that he has done has just been amazing to me. The programs that he's put together, he created this museum. In fact, it's the first museum in the US that represents people experiencing homelessness. And it's in College Park, Georgia. So for anyone who may not be familiar with College Park, it's right outside of Atlanta. Some people even consider it Atlanta, even though it's not. But again, Terrence Lester, his brother's doing, I mean, just big things. He's given countless sermons as well as speeches at schools. He has been, on the same stage at events with Dr. Bernice King, with Eric Dyson, and a whole bunch of other people at different events talking about homelessness, again, and poverty as well as economic inequality. He has a number of books out there as well. And he's just doing some great things and just seeing where he came from. Again, he was homeless himself, was in prison, was a member of a gang, dropped out of high school, all these different things. He went on to, get an associate's degree and then a bachelor's degree and then two master's degrees and then his PhD. And again, it's just doing big things. He's living out his purpose, um, and helping others and mentoring others as well. So I just wanted to bring him up. Terrence Lester. I think I want to say I am Terrence Lester, I think is his Instagram page. But again, not extremely well known, but again, just a good brother that's doing big things in the Black community and living out his purpose and making a difference. D, did you want to do that? I know you said you had that third person. I don't know if you wanted to mention him, or at least I thought. Did I hear you correctly?
I mean,
I don't want
I
to put
just
you
had
on the spot.
Yeah, no. I mean, can you hear me? Am I still
Yeah.
frozen? Let's start with that
No, you're
part.
good. We can see you.
No, man. Again, I appreciate, like I said, this assignment because it made me actually think about people um who are actually doing things in a community that are actually, like you said, they may not get as much recognition as they should. Um, but I thought about it's a brother out of Michigan. His name is Charles Moore, and he has his own CPA firm in East Lansing, Michigan, of all places. Graduate from what they call Adrian College, and he actually wrote a book called is titled "The Aftermath of Brown versus the Board of Education." And basically, he wrote this book after the election of President Biden and Kamala Harris. And in his book, he basically breaks down why the education system is having so many issues. And you have to read the book to get the whole connection between the election and the Board of Education. But one of the things that I like about him is that he's very active in the state of Michigan when it comes to, NAACP education rights for poor people. Why do we leave out, we want to leave behind public education, but we want to fund, private education and charter schools. But so basically that what his book is about is that we're leaving behind basically poor folks in the education realm. And we know that education is the reason how a lot of people get out of poverty, how people become better people, where they find their purpose. And so it's funny how a CPA started out, he went to college, got his degree in accounting, but here he is finding himself in his own purpose as a CPA. And part of that is because his company, Charles Moore Associates, does have contracts with the state of Michigan and the city of Detroit. So here's a brother who his CPA firm is actually responsible for the payroll for Detroit City Schools. And so with that, having that responsibility, it just had him dig deeper into the education system. And so that's what his book is about. And that's what his passion is about, is ensuring that our Black and brown children have the quality education that they need. Grew up in my hometown, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Went to college on a basketball scholarship. Again, one of the things he was smart about, Adrian was a Division three school back then, and so he got a partial scholarship. Didn't get a whole scholarship, but got a partial scholarship, and he made the best of the opportunity that was given to him. And so now, he has multiple contracts. Again, he's a multi-millionaire. But the thing that I love, he continues to give back to his community in East Lansing, Michigan. So yeah, I just wanted to share with you all Charles Moore. Again, somebody that may not be well known, but you can find his book on Amazon. It's called "The Aftermath of Brown versus the Board of Education."
That's cool, man. You said he went to Adrian College. I guest lecture at Adrian sometimes. Um,
Yeah,
that's
he
cool.
he played 4 years of basketball. I want to say he went like from 82, 83 to 85, somewhere in there. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, when I say Adrian College, not a lot of people seem to really know it. Obviously it's not some huge, college or anything. But no, that's cool. You're the first person I've heard talk about someone outside of people that I already know from the university. So that was interesting and
Yeah.
cool to me.
It's too cold up there. That's why.
Yeah, right. You got that right.
Mm.
Uh, anybody else have
Speaking of
one?
cold, speaking of cold, since Byron's frozen again.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make me the butt of jokes all night. That's what you're not gonna do.
Hey,
Something I want to
you better hurry
mention.
up and get off the line then.
Yeah, and he did too. He just
Right.
switched off. But something I want to mention real quick is because I think at least a few, or at least a couple of us have brought up a couple of times tonight, um, something regarding someone that we talked about and growing up in a single parent household, right? And I I just need to put out there that please do not let the media have you thinking that absentee black fathers is a thing, because it's not. There are more absentee white fathers by percentage than there are absentee black fathers. In fact, black fathers have one of the highest numbers regarding being present. Now, if you look at the numbers, because the media will fool you, they do what they do, right? They will present things. First of all, they only show you things that they want you to know most times, and then when they do present these certain things, they present it in a way where essentially they're just promulgating what they want you to know, and they skew numbers. And so when you hear something like whatever the percentage, I want to say it's something like 60%, at least the last time I saw it, it was something like 60% of of black men, I guess, or whatever, come from single parent households, or
Six.
whatever the case is. However, yeah, however they do those numbers, they make it seem like all of these black women are single mothers, and that number is accurate in a sense of a single mother when you think not being married. That does not translate to absentee father. All right. Just because you're a single mother doesn't mean you may not be cohabitating with your kids' father. It doesn't mean that the father isn't present. It just means single mother simply means that the mother isn't married. That's all. But they will try to have you believe that that translates to absentee dads. And it is not, you cannot conflate the two because it is not factual. And I just wanted to make sure that I put that out there, because so many people seem to think, again, based upon what's pushed out there, that there's just this dearth of present dads in the black community, and that could not be further from the truth. And like I said, the facts will bear this out. The numbers bear it out. Black dads are more present than white dads in most other races. And that's a fact. That's not just something I'm saying or putting out there. The numbers bear that out. The research proves that. You know? So don't conflate single mother with absentee dad. I just needed to put that out there. Does anyone else have anything? All right, cool. Well, with that, we want to thank each of you for taking the time to join us. As we wrap up this week's episode, I want to leave you with a quote from humorist and writer Mark Twain, who said, "The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why." Until next time, peace.